Good morning, everybody. We are going to start the family-friendly K-5 math resources to use at home in just a couple minutes. Make sure everybody gets here. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Anne. Okay. We'll wait till 10:01 just to make sure everyone can log on.
Quite a few people logging on, I see.
Well, yes, that seems to be the trend this week.
Should I get the demonstrated success sign in? And then move over here. You see it?
Yes, I see it. Okay, I think we're going to start. So I am Karen Mazzo, and this is Anne Mordecai, and
Hello.
Anne is going to be doing the presenting today. She is our math specialist, assessment specialist, woman of much knowledge at Demonstrated Success, all things quantitative and more. So I want to welcome Anne, and I'm grateful to have her today. And just a few things to go over before we start. I'm Karen Mazzo, also from Demonstrated Success. Anne and I have been working together for a long, lovely time. I want to say thanks to, excuse me? Did you, thanks.
I said many years we've been working together.
Many years. I want to say thanks to the New Hampshire Department of Education for allowing us to provide these webinars for you. We are very, very appreciative. Our emails have gone out to the whole state, and so we are, sponsored by the state to do this for you. So I'm grateful. And we also want to thank you for all the dedication that you're showing your students right now. You know, Anne and I have been on probably a dozen webinars this week that we alone have been offering, and we've had over 6,000 people attend these webinars, and the input has been really amazing, and the conversations have been amazing. And so thank you for all of your commitment and your hard work. You want to go back one slide, Anne?
Yeah.
I just want to let you know that you're all muted, and that when you do have a question, you can write it into the questions spot. I see some people are already on. So in your control panel, there's a place to write in questions, and there's also a chat box. We tend to use the questions more than the chat box, so if you can, just put your questions in the chat box. At the end, we will probably give a few minutes so people can raise their hands, and we will unmute you at the end, and you can ask direct questions for a little bit. If you are having trouble getting audio, there is an option in the audio section of the control panel. You can either use phone or computer. If you're having trouble over your computer, hearing over your computer, choose phone, and it will give you an option to call in, and there'll be a webinar ID and a password, and then I forgot what they're all called, but the information is.
Since the people who can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
When you're done, can you type that into us and send it to all?
I will type it in.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, Anne, I'm going to set you off.
All right, I'm gonna go. I gotta get a piece of paper. I just decided.
Okay. I just also wanted to tell you about this. New Hampshire Learns Remotely. The New Hampshire Department of Education has a great page where they are posting all educational opportunities and policies. And so we encourage you to log in the New Hampshire DOE to New Hampshire Learns Remotely. Oh, and I just wanted to point out our logo. We have revised our logo for the duration of quarantine. we have on the right, our social distancing logo. So we just wanted to emphasize that we are prioritizing social distancing as well, and we're flexible. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
This is the agenda for today. First, I'm going to do a little overview, and we're going to talk about counting and numbers and math facts fluency, computation, and then, of course, all the other types of math. We're not going to be able to talk about all of it. Problem solving if there's time, and then closing. But I do want to encourage you to type in questions. Hopefully, you can find that little question section. And I will answer as many as I can while we're during the webinar. The questions I can't get to or that Karen can't answer while I'm talking, we will have a document out on the internet on a Google Drive that will have all the questions and the answers. So just type away, enter your questions. I think that's all the overhead stuff. This webinar was created for parents, but I've noticed that a lot of teachers have also registered. So I want to make sure I'm covering both sides, but I really am focusing on what parents can do at home instead of what teachers can do at home for their students. Teachers as parents, this works. And I'm really focusing on filling in the basics, because once we get to the higher level math, even 5th grade, sometimes 4th grade, it gets harder. And if you can help your kids just strengthen their basics, get to their basics, that would be really great. Doesn't want to go. So I stole this slide from a webinar that Karen did last week, because she's the reading guru, reading writing guru. And she did the same webinar for reading. And these are the different components. I actually added a couple, but she and I have had many conversations about the difference between learning and teaching reading and math. And through all this time, we've sort of come up with reading. There are some fundamental things. Once you get through letter recognition and letter sounds, it's for the rest of your life, really. It's word recognition and maybe just sight words when you're little. Sounding out new words, which we sometimes come across words we don't know. So we have to sound them out, so we have to decode them. And then we have to be fluent with reading. And the main thing is the comprehension. And then as the grades go on, it's just, larger words, deeper, lots of innuendos, just reading, and the comprehension is just more in depth. So how does that correlate to math? I tried to make a match here. So letter recognition is like number recognition. And you'll want your kids to recognize letters, and you want them to recognize numbers. Letter sounds is equivalent, sort of, to number values. So even though I can recognize a 2, I need to know that it means 2 things. I'm going to turn off the camera because I know it takes up some of the page, so I'm going to turn that off. Word recognition, like sight words, the, and there's a list of Fry sight words, is equivalent to math facts, but we tend to think of the word part as more important. And it probably, I have to say, being able to read is probably more important than being able to add, but both are really important. And if your student was reading the word cat and going at, cat, it would take them forever to finish reading a page or a book. So that's not okay. We always want to get them past that point. And it's the same with number facts. If your student is adding 2 plus 7 and has to go 7, 2, 7, and has to actually think about it for too long, they forget what they were working on. So they really need to get those math facts down. They are like reading sight words. They need to have them memorized or have a way to quickly get to them. Decoding words I kind of put with computation, which isn't really good, but computation I think of as it's larger numbers, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing larger numbers. Fluency is fluency with both, with math facts and computation. And then comprehension, the whole purpose of math is so that we can understand problems and solve problems. Solve math problems, solve problems in the world. So comprehension, I put that there. I don't know, they don't really completely align. And as we know, there's a whole bunch of other math. There's computation with fractions, there's measuring, there are a whole bunch of others. Another thing I see with reading, we all see people read. All the time we see people read from the time we're little. We see our parents reading newspapers, although that's probably not going to happen too much longer because parents are going to be reading on the internet, but it's still reading. They see stop signs that we read in the library. We read them bedtime stories. We read the backs of food. We read labels. We read street signs. We read menus. They see this all the time. And we do see people doing math, but it really isn't the same. So grocery shopping, you know, I'm do I have enough money, or how, you know, I could put some quarters in, what time is it, things like that. Oh, I want to go back to that. So these are some examples of math that we see people doing, but we don't really know that they're doing it. If I'm at the grocery store and I need potatoes, how many do I need? I need to count them, which I do in my head. So my children or people around me don't see me doing it. If you ask a student, a young student, an elementary age student, what is math? This is the kind of answer you're going to get. It's a subject. That's all. It's a subject they do in school. It has no purpose. So one thing I would suggest that you can do with your students while you're home is think out loud when you're doing math. And I know if it doesn't come naturally, like I used to just count all the time for some reason. Even if I'm walking, I count my steps still. I just count. That's what my head does. But if it doesn't come naturally to you to start doing the math out loud, start paying attention to it and try to do it. We need 3 eggs, so you need to count the eggs. We have 10 people for dinner. Let's see, I need 1/3 pound per person. How am I going to figure that out? So if you've got a 4th or a 5th grader, they might be able to help you with that if you speak it out loud. How many quarters do I need? Of course, we use charge cards now, so that makes it a little different, but use quarters if you can. All right, I want to be here for 3 hours and it's $1/4 an hour. How many do I need? Just speak it. You don't even have to ask your student. He or she doesn't have to answer the question, but just that they see you doing it. I have to leave in 20 minutes. So I look at the clock and I calculate 20 minutes. Measuring. We do see people measuring a lot, but they never say it. They never talk it. They just write it down or they keep it in their head. Some rulers have, or some measuring tapes or rulers have fractions on them. It's broken up into 16ths usually, which is different than we usually teach with 4ths and 1/3s and halves, but 16ths works, and there's wholes and halves, and they are exactly equivalent to number lines, and students are asked to use number lines a lot these days. This is a good one. I'm looking for 135. Okay, I see there's 120. Oh, it means it's on the other side of the street. Am I going the right way? I have to look at the next house. Oh, yes, I'm going the right way. So numbers that are in between. We actually do it all the time. We just don't speak it, so we don't see people doing it. So I will encourage you to do that. I'd love you to post other ways, other things you think of that you do as regular day math. And I think in general, if you're not in a job that is, you know, an engineering or science or math type job, we really only go as far as 8th grade in our day-to-day math life. We may want to figure out the price of a sweater if it's on sale, that kind of thing. But we don't need math past 8th grade for everyday life. Some algebra we do need. If you have little children at home and you're just working on number recognition, one thing you could do is on your kitchen wall, just post some numbers and go, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just count them every now and then. To go up to 10 if they're little. Have them write the numbers and post them. Once they can read their numbers, make sure you're counting all the time and they can draw, you know, 1 kitten, 2 kittens, 3 kittens, or whatever. I can't really draw, so I just made dots. So that they can start seeing that the number 5 is 5 things. You can even make it look a little neater the way they would see it on a subitizing type card, like a dice or a card. Those that call that subitizing. Can a child subitize, which I'm not even sure if that's really a word, that this is 5, that this is 4? Do they see that this is 2 and 2 and 1? Do they see that it's 3 and 2? You do want to work on those kind of skills. But for the little ones, just count all the time. Count the forks. We have 7 people for dinner. Please get 7 forks. Count eggs. Count steps. Count the telephone poles as you're walking by. Count the people you see. Count the cars. Just count a lot out loud with your child. There are lots of things you can buy. I'm not going to talk about too much about tools, a little bit, but not too much about technology tools. There are tons of them out there. There are tons of apps that you can get for your iPad and your phone, and I'll talk a little bit about that. There are some programs that are great that you can go to, but playing cards with them is something that's really just a regular old deck of cards. Play War. Remember we used to play War? It should have, I think it has another name. Everyday Math calls it Top It, but you can, you each lay down a card, whoever has the highest wins. Or you each lay down 2 cards, add them together, whoever has the highest wins. Lay down 2 cards, subtract them, whoever has the lowest wins. Multiply them, whoever has the highest wins. So that kind of game is pretty easy. You could play fish, and instead of, you already have a 2 in your hand, so you ask for 2, you could ask for something that adds up to 5, or ask for something that adds up to 10. The same with dice. There are lots of games you could play with dice. You can buy cards that they have the numbers on one side and just the pictures on the other side, so they can start recognizing that this is 4 and 3, so that must be a 7. So they're starting to add things. At first they'll have to count them, but then they can start adding them. So that's a little bit about recognizing numbers and starting to count, or counting and starting to add. But now I want to talk about math facts, because that is like learning to read your sight words. We all had to learn them at some point. They were painful for some, not for others. They were a huge struggle for me. I was not good at memorizing. I finally realized I don't have any working memory, which of course makes lots of things interesting. So math facts, sorry, I just took a break because I just realized I'm out of my house for the first time in days. I'm at my internet with all the children at home and people visiting, not people visiting, but children at home watching Netflix, doing the homework. I have no internet at home, so I'm at the office. So I'm just taking a breath. Anyway, so math facts. Think about how you learned your math facts. Did your parents practice them with you? Did you just memorize them? Did you play games? How did you do it? Did you if you were working on addition, you had to first understand, you didn't have to, but you should have first understood what addition was before you memorized what 6 plus 7 was. There are strategies that we teach children to do. These are just some of them. Counting on, and I'll give you examples of each. Doubles and doubles plus 1, adding 9, making 10 and then adding them. Making 10 is sometimes something that they really have to practice. For students to know 2 numbers that they can add together to get to 10 is very useful, and I'll show you when we get there. It's funny, but most kids learn their doubles very early, well, I can't say before they know what they're talking about, but doubles, 6 plus 6, 3 plus 3, they seem to know those. And I can't say they just know them when they're born, obviously, but they do learn them very quickly. So counting on is pretty simply just counting on. You start at 13, and then you go to 14, 15. If you're adding on 3, you go 13, 14, 15, 16. And a lot of times with kids, if I'm going to add 2, I'll go 13 and then hit the table, 14, 15. So that there's a sound and there's some texture to it, so I can touch something. And if it's whatever number is the biggest, I start at. If I had 16 plus 3, I'd go 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's counting on. Doubles and doubles plus 1. Doubles, like I said, the kids, they know, but first they learn that. Then when they get to doubles plus 1, they can see that 7 plus 8, those numbers are right next door to each other. So I can take the lower number, 7 plus 7, and just add 1. So 7 plus 7 is 14. So 7 plus 8 must be 15. You may have to do that with younger kids. Start with using marbles or cookies, or I wouldn't use cookies, they'll eat them all. Using objects to count first. Show them 7 plus 7 is 14, 7 plus 8 is 1 more, and then you can divide it so it's 7 plus 8. They can play all sorts of rearranging the numbers to get to the answers. Adding 9s, again, start with objects. If you have chips, that's always good. Not potato chips, but like poker chips, those are always good. Pencils, anything, pennies, nickels, anything. So if you're going to add 9 to a number, first add 10 to that number, and then it's one less. And it takes them a couple of times to see that, oh, I added one, so therefore I have to take one away. And it comes out the same. There is a document, oh yeah, I forgot to say that at the beginning. At the bottom of the control panel is a little place for handouts, and it says that there are 2 of them. There's a fluency ideas, the grades 1 through 3 fluency ideas. It's actually 3 different brochures, so they're kind of upside down and all twisted around, but it's 2 pages for each grade and different ideas for fluency, adding and subtracting, and a little bit of computation in there. There is a document for strategies that I will post on the Google Drive that we're going to send you a link to. I can't remember if Karen said that at the beginning. We will, about 2 hours after the webinar is over, we will send you a link, and out there will be this PowerPoint, and you might want that because there'll be some links to some sites that I'm going to tell you about. There'll be this problem-solving template, the brochures for different ideas for adding and subtracting. What else is out there, Karen? Certificate. What else? Nothing?
You'll get a link to the recorded webinar.
Certificate, I said that. Yep.
And the recording, you said that?
Yeah, no, I didn't say that. So that's, yeah,
okay.
we'll have
So
that.
you'll all be getting a link to the recording of the webinar. And then we will also put these handouts up there.
Okay. Do we have any questions while we're stopping here, or did anybody add any ideas, things that they're doing with their kids?
Nope, no one has added anything. It sounds, not sure that everybody has the links to the toolbar with the handouts, although you should. So anyway, but they'll all be posted. Nope, no questions yet.
All right, thank you.
Just listeners. Yes.
Oh, just doing that whole page again, don't know why. So again, here's some tools, the dice, these, you can use flashcards. You can just do it in your head when you're driving. You can say, what's 5 plus 2? Or there's 2 red cars and 2 green cars. How many cars? Again, you can use the subitizing cards, just lay 2 cards down, add them, subtract them, multiply, divide. These, when you download the PowerPoint from the website that we're going to give you, from the link we're going to give you, this PowerPoint will be there, and these are live links. So this is a page that has some card games that you can do for math. Some good ideas, and there are tons of them, but here is one. And it gives you the directions, and it's pretty clear, so that's good. Let's see. We've got games with dice, which is fun. Dice, kids love dice for some reason. So a lot of math games with dice, so you can look there for some games. And don't overwhelm yourself by trying to read them all. Maybe learn one new one a week, or 1 or 2 a week at the most, and just play them and let the kids practice. Here are some, this is a math fact, Karen?
Can I interrupt you?
Yep.
At what age grade do we start multiplication basics?
Okay, that is 3rd grade. So in a little while, I have a list of what grades we start different things, but it's 3rd grade is when multiplication facts and learning what multiplication is begins in 3rd grade.
Okay. I just want to share a couple ideas that people had.
Okay.
Is this an okay time?
Yeah.
Have kids count out certain number of goldfish, Cheerios, etc., then ask how many more to make blank.
Yep. Really good idea.
When we are subitizing, how quickly do we move on to the next number? Do we wait until the number is mastered or fluency has developed?
When you're so are you talking about showing them a card with 5 on it?
Mm-hmm.
Just wait until they're done it. Wait until they get to the answer. So that we don't have to speed into any of this. If you're going to test them, you would want to speed, but I wouldn't suggest testing with subitizing. You might test with math facts. That's a huge controversy in the education world right now, that did we all get stressed out and hate math because we were forced to do math? We were forced we memorize our math facts, and then we were tested and time tested. Some people say yes, some people say no. We still do it with reading. We read for fluency. You have to learn your math facts, and you have to be able to do them pretty quickly and accurately. You don't have to be tested, but it's hard to know where the kids are if you don't test them in some way. But subitizing, I would just say, show them the card, let them count them, show them the next card, let them count it. Eventually, if you're playing games, they won't have to count it anymore. They'll just notice that that's a 5 or a 3. So I wouldn't do any timing on that one. Any other questions? More?
Yeah, there's lots of input. Somebody was just mentioning, we had kindergartners count by 2 when helping sort socks.
Oh, good idea. Oh, really good idea. Yep.
Yes, of course you can share the handouts, the recorded videos, everything you are welcome to share with your whole staff. An observation that someone had, I have a 9-year-old granddaughter who wanted to learn to quilt. We worked on fractions, money, yardage, etc. through the quilting project. Yeah, so project-based learning at this time seems to be a really good idea.
Would be great. Building things, sewing things, yeah.
So, and then somebody else was just saying that their son has diabetes and that they practice adding and dividing every day when he eats. I have him do the adding and I help with the division. And someone is loving all the simple tools and ideas. Beginning of intro to multiplication. Okay. Someone was mentioning that conceptually, I think some schools are starting multiplication conceptually in grade 1. Okay. Yes.
That's interesting. I don't know I wonder if that's a large number of schools that I try and follow the standards. Sometimes I agree with them, sometimes I don't, but I try to follow the New Hampshire standards, which really are the Common Core standards, but they're called the New Hampshire College and Career Ready Standards. And those standards for multiplication don't start till 3rd grade, although in 2nd grade, it starts with repeated addition, which is the beginning of multiplication. And counting by 2s, I think, might be 1st grade, maybe 5s. So that would be the beginning of multiplication. But one of the, there's always questions about the 3rd grade standards say that's when you start multiplication. But I think my class is ready, or my students, or my child is ready to start multiplication. And that's good. If your child really is ready, that's great. But in the classroom, there's so much math to learn at every grade that if they skip and start teaching other grades material, they probably haven't finished the stuff in their own grade. So if the kids seem to be ready to start multiplying, well, have they talked about geometry yet? Have they done all the measuring yet? Have they solved word problems? There are a lot of different kind of word problems, and those are major in the standards. So have they completed their own grade before they start working on other grade material?
Thanks, Anne.
Okay.
Just a couple more suggestions. Valerie had one for doubles, use a handheld mirror, right? Set a toy or object. Isn't that clever? And place the mirror next to it so that they can see the double.
Yeah, that's cute.
This is a really good question. Suggestions for a nonverbal kindergartner who is beginning to recognize numbers 1 through 10 and 11 through 20. So you can put out there if anybody has any suggestions, and Anne, maybe at the end, if you think
I'm gonna write that down too. The nonverbal, you can still talk things out, and you could say, these are just quickly things, show me 3, show me 10, show me 4, and if they can't, just you show them until they get it. But that's a really good question. I have to think about that one.
And then Anne wrote in that she bakes with her 1st grader, and there's all sorts of good teaching opportunities there for equivalent fractions, temperature, time, and measurement.
That's great. Baking is always good. Okay. And building things. If you're able, like if I could build a birdhouse, that would be a great thing. Lots of measuring and dividing and making sure things are accurate. I have a poll that I didn't launch at the beginning, and I'm going to launch right now. So I launched this poll. I think it's going to work. And if you guys can answer it, I can start seeing a lot of educators, tons of both. Nobody is just a parent. So you're all parents and teachers. Interesting. Okay. Yep. Keep going. Yep. We've got lots here. Right. It's almost 50-50, but a little more towards the educator side. Okay. Which I guess it would have been good to know, but you obviously want to know as parents too. So great. Thank you. Now I got to figure out how to stop it. Close the poll. Thank you. So this last one is a math fact practice, a site that a lot of teachers do know and they use it. I'm going to run just for a minute. I'm going to run just the beginning, the overview.
Welcome to Extra Math. Extra Math is a math fact fluency program that helps students master addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division facts. These facts are the building blocks of a child's math education and are absolutely essential for success with fractions, decimals, multi-digit algorithms, and higher level math. Recalling basic facts quickly and easily frees up mental resources for more complex problem solving. Extra Math can be used by parents with their children at home or by teachers with their students in the classroom or as homework. Student activities are simple and straightforward and take only a few minutes each day. Parents and teachers regularly receive progress reports in email. More detailed reports can be accessed online at any time.
Okay, I'm going to stop that there. So this is a great resource and it's free. Schools do use it. There's a Getting Started tab for parents, and kids really like it, and it shows them their progress right away. So it's a really fun tool for them to use. So if you want to work on math facts online, this is a great tool. Karen, no? The next thing we talked about, counting, beginning, adding, subtracting, math facts, now computation and what's going on with computation. Computation, you probably, if you're a teacher, you've seen it, and if you're a parent, you know that we are not teaching computation the way we learned it with the traditional algorithms. We are teaching that later, but the goal now is to get the kids to really understand what they're doing before they start doing long division. I can remember learning long division. It was horrible. All I knew was add, subtract, multiply, carry this down. I never really knew what I was doing. Or when I'm multiplying, when I'm multiplying, remember you got to bring that zero down. Why? I have no idea. I just did it. I did what the teachers told me to do, which was weird because I wasn't that obedient, but I did, I said, bring the zero down. Okay, put the zero. Or sometimes I forget, but I had no idea why I was doing it. So the goal now is to try and get kids to understand what they're doing. Then these algorithms just sort of flow because they realize, oh, I know what I'm doing. Oh, this is way quicker to do it this way. But for the early grades, we're teaching it different ways. So the traditional algorithm for addition subtraction isn't required by the standards until 4th grade, which in general parents don't like. And I can understand. I mean, your kid comes home and they're doing this weird addition and you don't understand why they're not just adding it like it's shown right here. Why don't you just add it? It's not till 4th grade that they have to learn that, but some of the kids, the parents teach them, so the classrooms are pretty mixed with who can do this and who can't. Very often, the students who are taught the traditional adding or any of them subtracting method at home, they don't go back and learn the reasons why, and they get stuck because they don't know how to check it, they don't know what they're doing. If they make a mistake, they can't fix it because they don't even know that they're making a mistake. Multiplication, I think, is until 5th grade. I wrote that and then I meant to look it up. Long division is not until 6th grade. So even 6th grade teachers sometimes are complaining that the kids are coming in and they don't know how to do long division. They're not supposed to know it until they get to 6th grade. Okay, so now that we know that, what do we do? There are lots of other ideas, and I'm just going to give a couple here for each operation. And I have one of those, I think, the handout, those brochures have other ideas in the handouts. So for addition, number lines are used a lot. So if you want to have a student add 58 plus 7, they can draw part of a number line, or you can give them part of a number line, and they add 7, and they break up the 7. So first they add 2 and get to 60, which is a pretty easy number to get to, and it's a pretty easy number to add onto. So break up the 7. They know that from 58 to 60 is 2. How many more do I have? I have 5 more. So they can do that in their head. They can do that on a number line. Another way is, okay, 58 plus 7. That's 50 plus 8 plus 7. And that's 50 plus 15. Oh, I still got too much. So I've got 50 plus 10 plus 5. I can do that in my head. So breaking things apart like that is what we're looking to do. Subtraction is pretty similar. So 184 minus 45. This is called an open number line. There are no tick marks on it. Like, I'm going to go back to that other one if I can get to it. No, I can't. So this has tick marks. It's got all the numbers marked. This one is an open number line, but you can do it just as easily. I'm going to start for subtraction. I'm going to start at 184, and I'm first going to subtract 40. I can do that in my head. And then I'm going to subtract how many more? I have 5 more left to do. I could subtract the whole 5 and get down to 139, or I could subtract 4, get down to 140, and then 1 more. Or this is very similar, but without the number line. 184 minus 45. The first thing I can do is 184 minus 40, and I get there, and then subtract 5 more. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Multiplication. The first, to start with multiplication, you could give students 12 little chips or 12 somethings, 12 pencils, 12 pennies, and say, here are 4, 3 times. Show me that 4, and put them in 3 piles. 4 times 3. You can have them draw that. Make 3 boxes and put 4 things in each one, or 4 boxes and put 3 things in each one. You could also draw an array. We call this. Kids start working with arrays in 2nd grade, I think, at the very end of 2nd grade. This is 4. And there, whoops, did I do that right? No, this is 3. There are 3 rows and 4 columns, and just count them up. That's 12. And you can put a 4 here and a 3 here. So 3 times 4, 4 times 3. And also you can show them, start showing them that it doesn't matter with addition and subtraction. If you do which number you do first. You can use the bigger number first, the smaller number first. It doesn't make any difference. You get the same answer. And that is something that they need to learn. Then when you get to bigger numbers, you know, if it was a huge number, you really don't want to start counting all these things out. You could draw a big, huge array like this. So I've got 16 times 6. So I've got 16 across the top, and I've got 6 this way. So I could draw just this array. And then I can break it into, take 10 out, because I know what 6 times 10 is. So draw a line there. And then I know what 6 times 6 is. So I've got 36 plus 60. And you don't even have to draw the grids anymore. I know that this is 10 times 6 and 6 times 6. So they have to start playing with things in order to learn that that's what happens. And using grids is good. Using manipulatives is even better. Here's my 10 and my 6. So I know that I've got 16 across the top and 6 this way. And I can just draw the line, and this is 60, this is 36. So I get the answer. Whoops, did I skip through that? Did that make any sense? It's kind of hard just to jump in on that, but this is one of the models that schools use to teach larger number multiplication.
And
Yes.
Donna just wrote in and was saying that they also use a hundreds grid a lot for addition. And then that the area, the slide before, I think, some schools call that an area array.
Yep.
Okay.
An area model, area array, yep.
Area model, sorry, an area model, yes.
Yeah, a lot of, and this is one of the models that students are using. It definitely, I don't think it's written in the standards, but it is one of the models. The number grid you're talking about the hundreds chart for adding. It's great for counting, adding, and adding on, and adding tens.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I don't love it, because when we're adding things. We're getting them to understand that they're adding adding 2 things and 4 things is adding things. It's not just, that's at the beginning is how they should learn it.
Mm-hmm.
But the number grids for counting, like we used to use, you play a board game and you had to count on the board. That was a great way to learn to count. And you could count by 2s. You can count by 10s, count by 2s on a grid, which is great.
We could still play board games.
We could play board games. If you have any board games at home, play Monopoly. You got to do money. It's great. Board game, Parcheesi, anything. You roll the dice. You've got to subitize the numbers. Sometimes you have to add them together. You've got to count out the numbers. Board games are great. And it
What
is
about
definitely, go ahead.
Yahtzee?
Yahtzee is a great one. I love Yahtzee. Cribbage is fantastic when your kids are able to add. That's a great one. Any of those games are really good. And I do think a lot of teachers are saying nowadays that kids are coming in and they don't have the basic number sense that they used to have. And I do think that a lot of that is because we don't play games anymore. We don't play cards. We don't play board games. We just are on the computer all the time. So those kind of games, this is a perfect time to be doing that with your students. Division, definitely, it's just the opposite of multiplication. You start with objects. So give them 12 objects and have them put them into 3 groups. So 12 divided by 3. How many are in each group? 12 divided by 3. Put them into groups of 3. And how many groups do you have? It's 4. And I know there are some programs actually that teach, if it's 12 divided by 3, it must be 12 divided into 3 groups. And that isn't really right, isn't correct. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and it's either 3 items in 4 groups, or 4 groups with, the other way around, or 4 items in 3 groups. It doesn't make any difference which way you show it. It's the same. So they can do it any way they want. You can also use the area model. It's backwards and it takes a little bit of thinking for a second. So I've got 96 here, and I've got 6 rows. I can divide that into, I know that I could just take out, 10 of them. 10 times 6 is 60, so that's gone. How many do I have left? I have 36 left. Well, how many columns is that? Well, if I know my facts, if I know my multiplication facts, I know it's 6 rows, 6 columns. If I don't, I can just draw it out or use manipulatives to make this work. And this is just the beginning of learning how to divide with larger numbers. And this is a picture of one of the pages of the document that is on the webinar, the Fluency document. Just more ideas on how to do addition and subtraction, and division and multiplication. There's only one little piece of division without the traditional algorithm. So there are lots of ideas on these documents. Shall I continue, or anything we want to stop and answer here, Karen?
No, but we will make sure to upload those documents into the public Google folder that you will have access to.
Yep. And any questions that either Karen or I aren't answering now, we will also answer those questions online and put them on the Google Drive. So you'll have access to that. So right now we've covered number recognition, number values, math facts, and computation. And those are the things I kind of compared to the reading pieces. But of course, there's a whole bunch more to math. There's all these other things: problem solving, fractions, measurement, area and perimeter, geometry, all these different types of things. And if your students, fractions don't start until 3rd grade, but all these others have components for kindergarten through 5th grade. So what if you're working with an older student or a 4th or 5th grade, and they're going to work with geometry, and do you remember geometry? No. But for geometry for elementary students is just vocabulary and knowing what these words are. What's a ray? What's a parallel line? What is a obtuse angle, an acute angle? What's a right angle? So if you can't remember, which makes total sense, why would you remember? Because you don't use those. Everybody probably remembers what a parallel line is. But other than that, a lot of it is hard. So I go to Khan Academy, and I'm going to go there right now if I can figure out how to get out of this. Let me out. Let me out. Come on. All right, well, I can just go, I'm gonna go to Khan Academy and Google Khan Academy Geometry 4th grade. I'm gonna have to escape from here to get there. So if I go to Khan Academy Geometry 4th grade, you can see I've done it before. I'm gonna get a whole bunch of results, but I want Khan Academy. It usually comes up first if I'm specific like that I want Khan Academy, what the topic is and the grade. Click on that. And it's gonna bring me to the 4th grade geometry section. There are other, in 4th grade, there's operations and algebraic thinking, numbers and operations in base 10, fractions, and measurement and data. But I asked for geometry, so this is what I get. So if my child's working on, let's see, what's a good one? Let's say lines, rays, and segments. I can't remember which are which. I can, as a parent, I can just go in there, or a teacher, I can go in and go, oh, okay, I don't remember. It's gonna first send me to a little quiz, practice. And I'll go, oh my God, I can't remember that. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go click on this, and this is a video. It's gonna show me, so I'll play a minute of it.
A line segment, a line, and array, And this is kind of the pure geometrical versions of these things. And so line segment is actually probably what most of us associate with a line in our everyday lives. So a line segment is something just like that, for lack of a better word, a straight line. But why we call it a segment is that it actually has a starting and a stopping point. So most of the lines that we experience in our everyday reality are actually line segments when we think of it from a pure geometrical point of view. And I know I drew a little bit of a curve here, but this is supposed to be completely straight, but it's a line segment.
I don't know how many of you have used Khan Academy. If you're using them in your classroom or your students have used it. I mean, it's a great tool for students, but it's also great for learning yourself. If you can't remember how to do something, there's another example I wanted to show you. That was a pretty specific topic I went to, the geometry for 4th grade. If my student is working on fraction number lines, so I can't I did this, fractions on a number line. And I can't remember this part. Just go to Khan Academy, find a lesson. And he just starts and explains it really well.
If we take a hole, and in this example, the hole is this entire green circle. And if we were to split it into 5 equal sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we split it into 5 equal sections. And if we were to select one of those 5 equal sections, so let's say we select this section right over here, that we have selected 1/5 of the whole, 1 out of the 5 equal sections. We could do the exact same thing on a number line. Everything we've been doing so far has to deal with.
So you're gonna have to watch that if you need to remember it. Let's go. Start here.
And
yes.
There's a comment or a question about correct math language. Words like factor, product, associative property. Testing asks students to know that specific language.
Do they need to, or what's?
Say it again.
Is the question, do they need to, or should I use, or what?
Yeah, so should we be using the appropriate math language?
If you know the appropriate math language, then absolutely use it. If you know, you have a multiplication problem, 5 times 3, 5 and the 3 are factors, and 15 is the product. If you don't know it, don't worry about it. I mean, definitely it's better if you can, but if you can't, you just want them to practice stuff. And you can look it up. And if you watch Khan Academy, I'm pretty sure he uses the correct language. Anything I've ever seen.
Plus we're not having state testing this year, which is helpful, so.
Yes, that's true. All right, so this is the same, the number line. That was a good question though. All right, let's see, what time is it? Can't see the clock. Karen, I can't see the clock on mine. What time is it?
We got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, so problem solving. I've never actually done this online. I've done it in real life, so I don't know how it's going to work online. Does everybody have a piece of paper next to them? I'm actually going to have you solve a problem in a minute. So I'll give you a second to get up, get a piece of paper and pencil.
And
Yes.
while we're paused, a quick
Yes.
question for you.
Yeah.
Someone wrote in that they use Khan Academy as a teacher.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's a place on Khan Academy where you can assign work, or do you have to copy links and then send them to your kids?
You can assign work. You can set up a classroom, and maybe we could do a webinar on that, Karen. You can set up a classroom, similarly to the way you would set up on Google Classroom, or the way you would set up on, if you have a math program that has your classes set up. You can set up a classroom and assign that way. You can assign to the whole class. You can assign to individual students. So for special ed, it's a good tool for everybody. It's a really good tool, actually. You can see the results. You can see how much time students are spending on their work, which work they're spending time on. It's very useful.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, and if whoever's asking that, if they want to send an email, I can help them get started. If we don't get around to if we don't have time to get to a webinar about that. Okay, so you probably had time to get the paper. So solving problems. Look, today is Word Problem Wednesday, or whatever, Friday, whatever they call it. But, problem is a bad thing. I don't want to have a problem, but of course we all have problems, but I don't want to have a problem. So I'm going to call it a puzzle, although I do forget to do that when I'm with kids, but I'm just going to say that once. So problem solving is really the biggest part of what we do in math. We want to learn to solve problems. In kindergarten, there's one standard that relates to problems. And as you can see, as the grades go on, there are more standards that relate to solving word problems, real life problems, and word problems. And I'm going to just show you the standard and what it says. You don't have to really look at it all, but I just want to see you. It's not a simple solve addition problems. That's not how simple the standard is. So for grade 1, it says solve addition and subtraction word problems within 20 using objects or drawings. Okay, so they don't have to do equations, I don't think. They don't have to write numbers yet, but according to this, they don't have to write an equation. And it's just within 20, and it's just addition and subtraction. So they have to use objects and drawings and equations. So the kids in first grade have to learn how to do an equation with a symbol for the unknown. So they have to learn how to write an equation. Susie had 2 apples and Billy had 3 apples. How many did they have altogether? The equation with an unknown is 2, did I say 2 and 3? 2 plus 3 equals question mark, equals blank, equals a letter, equals an apple, equals something, a symbol, some kind of symbol. So it's 2 plus 3 equals something, a symbol. Then there's even more. They have to solve them within 20 using situations of adding 2, taking from, so that's 3 plus 2, or 7 minus 2, taking from, putting together, so I've got 3 green apples and 4 red apples, putting those together. 7 apples and 3 of them are green, I'm taking them apart. Comparing is who has the most, who has the fewest. Billy has 7 apples, Sarah has 3 apples, who has the most, who has the fewest. And the unknown has to be in all positions. So it has to be the answer is unknown, or one of the add-ins, one of the pieces that you're adding is unknown. So it's not just straight solve addition and subtraction problems. So this is a great place to practice with your students if you can. And I'm just going to show you grade 2 is 1 and 2 step, and it's all the same. The rest is all the same within 100, and then it's all the same. They need to do an equation, and they need to use a symbol for the unknown. In 4th grade, they need to start using a letter for the unknown. So there are many ways that we talk about for solving word problems, and these are just a bunch of different ways. One of the big ways that younger grades use is they use keywords, and that won't be that helpful. So I would say stay away from it, and I'm going to show you what it means. These are posters that some teachers could have of what all the keywords mean. If it says all together, you add. If it says, what's the difference? You subtract. The problem is it's not always true. And the way it works is you say, okay, I'm going to underline the question, And then I'm going to look for the numbers. There they are. I'm going to highlight the numbers somehow. And then I'm going to look for the word, the keyword. In this case, it's all together. So Joey has 5 marbles. Jan has 3 marbles. How many do they have all together? The equation 5 plus, and they're supposed to have a question mark, but 5 plus 3 equals 8. Okay, that makes sense. So it works there. But then if you get this question, Joey and Jan have 5 marbles all together. Joey has 3. How many does Jan have? Underline the question, find the numbers, look for the word, and it says all together, so I'm going to add 5 plus 3 is 8. That's not the right answer. How many marbles does Jan have? So you can't use keywords. It doesn't work. I don't think I have time to go through this, so I guess I can save this for another time. Or I'll just keep going for a minute and then I will stop, or people can just log off if they want to. So I want you to think about what you do when you solve problems. I'm going to give you a 4th grade question, and I'm going to give you like 2 minutes to solve it. And then I want you to, as you're solving it, think about what you're doing. And you don't have, if you don't get to the end, it doesn't matter. I'll give you about 2 minutes. So here's the problem. And I have a little, oh, I took it away. That wasn't very smart. There it is, but I'm going to play a little music. Maybe I won't do that. I'll just show it since we don't have much time. All right, I'm going to stop it there. So what is the, I want to just, you can have to type in some questions. Just what's the first thing you did? Some people just type in some answers there. And maybe what's the second thing you did, if you can want to give me 2 things that you did, and then we'll stop. Karen, did you try and solve it?
Well, I didn't get very far, but I read it about 6 times.
Right. So that is the very first step. Greatest step. Lots of people are sending in. These are all good. Okay. Some people jumped right to the answer, which because they know math, they could do that. So really, the first thing you did was you read it. And you read it probably more than once. And you read it as you were solving it. You started to solve it and you went, wait, that doesn't work. And you went back and read it again. So one of the things we need, I'll just stop after this part of solving problems. One of the things we need to do when we're teaching word problems is tell them that we as adults read the problem many, many times. We have to understand what it is. What are we trying to do? Kids think, okay, I'm going to read this. They have no idea what they just read, and they can't solve the problem. But when I first read this, I didn't know what it was asking me either. I had to reread it. So that's step 1 in solving problems, and maybe we can do that on another day if people want to do that. We could do solving, so I'm going to write that down, Khan Academy as a teacher. Okay. I do see that some of the comments were, I looked at some of the comments and this was good for, written for parents, but it was the invitation was sent out to teachers. That is very true. I guess we were hoping, and we probably didn't write it on the invitation, was that if you could send this to your parents, that would be great. So that was our mistake. So sorry about that. You can send a link to your parents if you want parents, if you think it would be helpful for them. And Karen, are there any other questions that we could, there's tons of questions. I see like 100 questions. Were there any that you were able to? Yeah?
I'm sorry, I was responding to somebody. Did you tell us the answer?
The answer is, there are quite a few answers, actually. You could put 1 in each cup. I'm going to let you keep going. There are quite a few answers.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's one of those questions that has lots of answers. So I can't remember. I'll put some of the answers out on the sheet when I answer questions.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for all of your answers. A lot of people wrote in. Awesome.
Yeah. What do they want to know? Yeah. That's the first. Yeah, there are lots of what's your first step, but definitely your first step is you read it, and we just skipped that part. Okay, so it is just about 11, and I don't want to go over. So please send in. We're going to stay on a couple more minutes or a minute. So send in some more questions. We will post all the questions, and we'll post the webinar, and we will see you at the next one. Yeah, we talked about if you go to our website, you can see all the, actually going to skip out of the end of this. If I can escape.
Do you want to go? There should be a slide after.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Oh yeah, we've got a couple things we want to say. So this is the slide on, if you want to see what webinars are coming up, or please enter in ideas of what you would like to see for webinars, you can put those in the question area. You can go to this link right here, which is a live link on the PowerPoint. Or if you just go to Demonstrated Success and look for workshops and virtual teaching, you'll find a list of what's coming up. We also are starting a series of music for student performances, and we're going to start tomorrow with a student from Portsmouth who was a student. He was a contestant on American Idol and The Voice, Sam Robbins. I don't know if you know him. It's going to be live on Facebook, although I guess they're talking about maybe moving it to Zoom, so we'll let you know. But right now it's Facebook, the Demonstrated Success page on Facebook. And next Wednesday, we'll have 2 other students, and we'll continue on from there.
So, yep, that's a treat for you. And I really would encourage you. A couple people have written in and talked about sharing this with parents. You will be getting links to the recording and the handouts. And I think that it would be ideal if all of you were able to share with parents. We intentionally made it very accessible to parents. So I hope that this information finds its way to them. Thanks.
Yes, and please enter in the questionnaire some webinars that you would like that maybe we haven't thought of yet. We'll find somebody to do it, right?
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just busy reading the questions. So thank you very much. And thank you, Anne. We got some really lovely feedback. It seems that people really appreciated it. I certainly learned some stuff. So thanks for that. And everybody go forth and have a wonderful day.